It's time now for us to have a conversation about things happening in the country. Joining us is the chair of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, Bishop David Oginde. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
You're well today?
I'm well today.
Fantastic.
I notice the emphasis on today.
Yes. And we'll probably talk the reasons as to why we emphasize on today in just a little bit. But thank you for taking time out of your morning to join us today. Certain things that we're going to be looking into.
Thank you.
Do us a favor of interpretation. We go around the African continent every week, as you know. We'd like to hear interpretation of the proverb that Dennis will share, and he'll tell you where it's coming from.
Yeah, and we are in a country that one would say is young in terms of when it got its independence, and that we talk about 1994, and it is not Rwanda. We're talking about a country in the South Africa, the Rainbow Nation, a beautiful country, but whose history is one that is full of tears and pain. Talk about the apartheid era and also the massacres that happened in the country and how that changed the trajectory of the country. But then again, look at its economy, one of the biggest economies in the continent. Unfortunately, there still are struggling with things like power, steamer, shida sana, but they continue to push either way. But let's go to the proverb, shall we? You are what you do, not what you say. You are what you do, not what you say. How would you interpret that?
Very good one. Very good one. So, I think it's similar to what has also been said, talk is cheap. Anybody can say anything. And anybody can declare anything. But it's only as we look at your life over a period of time that we'll really know who you really are. And as a person who does leadership training, it's what we call credibility. Credibility is not declared. I can't say, I'm a very credible person. It's you people to decide whether I'm a credible person or not. And you can't declare me credible on the first time we meet. It is watching my life over a period of time that you then determine whether I'm credible or not. So that, in my view, says exactly what you have said, that I am what I do, not what I say.
What you say.
There you go.
Yeah. Well put, well said.
Well,
it is us to tell whether you're credible, not you to tell us.
No.
Yeah. We'll tell you.
I pray you will.
You'll hear it for sure. So, this is interesting because the last week, Bishop Oginde, you were at State House. You were handing over a report to the president. And then thereafter, we saw the report coming out from the EACC in terms of the corruption index for the country, where several institutions were named as the most to the least, where groups of individuals, interestingly enough, journalists were put into that group. But I mean, from A to Z, we looked and we saw the numbers, we saw the percentages, and we talked about the report, essentially, which we've been able to look at from beginning to end, talks about, where Kenya is at the moment when it talks about corruption and ethics. And so certain things have happened, and more reports, more and more analysis from this report continues to come out. But before we get into some of the nitty-gritty, what is the significance of presenting or tabling this report before the country as the EACC and making that known?
Oh, thank you. First, just a small adjustment to what you have said. I was not in State House.
Not in State House, I beg your pardon.
To present the report. When I was in State House, we were, the president was signing the conflict of interest bill.
You're right, I beg your pardon.
So that's what took me to State House the other week. This week, we had a launch of the corruption survey. And basically, this is part of our mandate. We are required by law to actually update the nation on the status of matters corruption. And so we do this through research. We have a research department, and they undertake a survey across the country to just find out where are we at in matters of ethics and corruption. And so once we do that research, we have our report, and we make it public. So we invite you to come to amplify our voices to the public.
Right.
And that's what we did last week. So basically, it's an information for the people of Kenya to know where we are and to see what can be done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why was it important then for you to be at State House the week before that to then do issues around the conflict of interest bill?
Conflict of interest bill, as you know, is a piece of act. Now it is not a bill anymore. It is now an act of Parliament. But it's while it was still a bill, it's one that generated a lot of discussion back and forth. As you know, it went through Parliament, Parliament meaning the National Assembly and the Senate. And then it was taken to the President. The President returned it back with the proposals on what should be amended. And they finally negotiated between Senate and National Assembly and came to an agreed version, which then was sent to the President for signing into law. So we, as the institution that is going to provide greater oversight of that on that particular law, we were invited to witness. Basically, we were there to witness. There was no other thing. The President was just signing it into law. Ours was to stand and flank him as he did that.
And yet you prayed.
We pray all the time. In almost all our, all our national events, we normally begin with prayers.
Yes,
so I was requested to pray.
Yes.
And I prayed.
However,
yes,
the prayer that you prayed received a lot of applause from Kenya in a manner in which it has never before. And the words that you used, I don't know if they were pre-thought, but you're here so you can tell us, but they seemed to tell a story beyond a prayer. Did you think about it in that nature, or did you meet it with surprise after that it had, done the rounds, really, in terms of what you were praying?
As a Christian, and particularly as a leader within the church circles, one of the things we teach our members when they pray is that you should pray the word of God. Because you know that kind of prayer, you're simply saying to God what he has already said, what is already written. And you rarely go wrong, if I put it that way. I can't say you can't go wrong, but you rarely go wrong praying scripture. And so that's what I did. And in the context of what we were talking about, or what had brought us together, we have a conflict of interest law. And this law basically is saying that there are certain ways through which people should conduct themselves when it comes to matters procurement. And it basically says that those people who are in government should not do business with government because of that kind of conflict of interest. So my concern, therefore, as one who has been called upon to pray, is to call upon God to help us to align with what we have, what we have agreed on as a people. You remember, we are the ones who have agreed that this is how we want to conduct ourselves. Now, the concern is that sometimes you find that people agree on what they want to do, but then there are some people who go behind and do the very opposite. And this is what we have seen happening all the time. So my prayer was, God to help us so that we don't get into that situation.
Just give me a minute. Just a little bit further, but it was more than God to help us, because you then did give biblical examples of people who took their own lives on guilt that they felt for things they did which were contraventions. And so it almost appeared as though you were asking God to do the same thing. If in Kenya we see that people are contravening the law, which you were there actually to witness signing over, if people are contravening the law, that should that same fate not befall them, whether it is in a literary Kenyan context. But would that be the prayer today? If there are people in Kenya today contravening the law at this very auspicious occasion where a conflict of interest law is being signed into place, that if the people, whether they're in that room, whether they're outside of that room, anywhere else in the country, should actually face a similar fate, should that be something that they're involved in? Is that the case?
Exactly. Because God does not change. God does not change because now we are in 2025 or some hundreds of years BC. And so our as a person who is involved in the fight against corruption, I would be talking from a point of knowledge and information, because we deal with issues of corruption every day. That is my daily work, So I have seen these things. I've seen families that are involved in corruption. I've seen couples who conspire to defraud the public of funds. I've seen individuals who go out there and take that which does not belong to them. And we see it is what I'm saying through the prayer is that this is not new. We have similar situations in the Bible where families were involved in corrupting the system that was put in place, where couples were involved, where individuals were involved, and they faced the consequences of their actions. And in those particular cases, God brought judgment upon them through the leaders of the time, and they face the consequences. So what we are saying is, we have got, as a nation, we have got to that place where corruption has become a natural thing. It has become like a normal thing. And even as ordinary citizens, we seem to celebrate the corrupt. We seem to celebrate people whose wealth we cannot explain. They cannot explain to us how they came about with this. So if we are calling, if I'm called upon to pray, I'm not just going to say a prayer. I'm going to pray. And I'm going to pray that God intervenes, because that's what prayer is, that God intervenes in this situation. So that is all that I did on that particular day. It is interesting that prayer seemed to have resonated with many Kenyans, which tells you something about the feeling that as Kenyans, ordinary Kenyans have about those who are involved in corruption. And so, personally, there's a sense in which I'm happy that people say amen to that prayer, because that amen simply means I agree. I agree with that prayer. So it was surprising that many Kenyans agreed with that prayer. And I would ask that we continue to pray that kind of prayer, because we need God's divine intervention, even as we do that which is our part within the legal system.
And you see, Bishop, as you are having that prayer, we also live at a time when you look at even the conflict of interest bill and the reports that further came into fore. Look at the connection of leaders in the country. One would say even the highest office in the land, the connections with the NTSA. You come talk about e-citizen as we speak right now, and you look at the case of former Migori Governor Kothobado and how all that money and the family from the county talk about former Kiambu governor. And it is something that has been happening for a very long time, hence the importance of having this bill in place. But even after that, it has now become an act of parliament. We look at a situation where now you've launched this report, and this report paints a grim picture of where we are as a country. One would say, based off the report, the numbers have gone down, but still the numbers are high. You look from the police, who are considered to be the worst, all the way again to State House in the Republic as well, featuring on that list. And it is a sad situation. And one would ask you, Bishop, from what it is you deal with every day, because you say you wake up every day to deal with corruption in this country, just how grim is the situation? Just paint the picture even if it's in the most graphic way, for us to understand what it is we mean when we say that corruption is the worst disaster this country is going through?
Thank you very much. The situation is grim in the sense that it is pervasive. We receive reports of a person complaining over 200 shillings that they have been asked by a chief or assistant chief down in the village. And for them, that 200 shillings is like 2 million, because it is what stands between them and going hungry.
Yes.
So when somebody asks you to pay that in order for you to get a service or to be released from what an allegation they have placed upon you, it becomes very difficult for that person. And so they feel EACC should help me. And I have received messages, text messages, Chairman, please help. I've been asked to give 200 shillings. So all us who are the elite, we consider that omena, a small thing that we should not even bother with.
Yeah.
And yet for that person, that 200 shillings is a lot of money. It is a daily wage. It's what will keep them buy food for their children. So if somebody deprives them of that, it is really, really bad. All the way to where we are dealing with people who have embezzled tens of billions, and for them that is small change. It's just something that they take from government through systems, and life goes on. So that range from 200 shillings to 10 billion is what we deal with on a daily basis. Now, if you may have noticed something very interesting from the survey that we did and the report that we gave, is that it's only a few people who are engaged in this thing called corruption. But these few people cause the whole country to suffer. And if we go back to the issue of prayer and the examples that I gave in the prayer, Ananias and Sapphira were just one couple in a congregation that was growing of thousands of people by that time. And yet they found their names recorded in the Bible as a people who violated the law. And so they become examples of what should not be done. And we have Ananias and Sapphira in our time and in our season today. And these people are causing havoc in the nation. It is not the whole country. It is not all the people. If you look at, for example, there was one of the data information that we gave out is the involvement in corruption. And we find that how do people get involved in corruption? They are asked or demanded, where you go to an office and somebody literally says, you need to give me this so that I can process your papers. Or on the road, a police officer stops you and says, Sasa, and they will not let you go unless you give something. So that is demanded. Then there are those people who insinuate, they don't tell you directly, but they keep shuffling around. They say the file is lost or something is happening. You are the one to interpret that you need to facilitate that process so that you get what you need. Then those people who offer, they go to the office and they have already made up their mind that unless I give something, this thing will not be processed. So you may not ask as an officer, but somebody say, nifanyie tu nitaona vile nitakusaidia. So we help each other. So when you look at the data there, then there are those people who just go and seek services and get services without being asked, offering or anything. Now, it is very interesting that according to the report we have, 69% were neither asked, nor offered, nor insinuated. In other words, they just did their business and it went well. 69%. 18% were demanded, experience a demand, where it was demanded of them, you have to give something or you won't get. 10% are people who felt that somebody is asking, but they are not asking directly. Then only 0.9, less than 1% offered to give. When you look at those figures, what, in terms of interpretation, what it tells me that is the majority of Kenyans actually do not engage in corrupt practices. That's what it says, 69%. The majority of Kenyans. But this small percentage here is the rot that is messing up our nation. And these are the people that we really have to deal with. So there is a perception, and it is a perception, that Kenyans are corrupt. But if you look at the majority of Kenyans, we are not corrupt. And that's why I think people resonate with the idea of fight against corruption, because they can see that there are few people
who are cutting away a lot of money.
And I think a lot of money.
Isn't this a problem, Bishop?
That is a problem.
Whereby you can see that there's a large percentage of Kenyans who probably wouldn't get involved in these things. There's a smaller number of people who are getting away with millions, billions. And so the question is, what is being done about it? Number one, does the EACC have the capacity to actually deal with this? Sometimes the words have been used that, there's a lot more bite, there's a lot more bark than there is bite. For goodness sake, we have members of parliament who were charged, went into court, who were then found guilty and sentenced, and we still have them running for and winning elective seats in Kenya today, serving today. We have cases very clearly where there are issues, and somehow we're able to put people back on a ballot, and we have a functioning EACC. So the question is, in as much as there wouldn't be much of an appetite for Kenyans to engage in corruption, there are a few who are engaging. Is the appetite to actually deal with these cases just as strong?
If I ask you, who puts the member of parliament in parliament?
Kenyans.
What do you want EACC to do? To go and stop them from voting? EACC has already said this guy is corrupt.
Taken him to court.
We have taken him to court. He has even perhaps been prosecuted, or the case is ongoing. He goes round, I find his name on the ballot, and you go ahead and vote for him. And then you turn around and blame EACC. It doesn't make good logical sense. Kenyans, and I have said this before, love corrupt people. We do.
How do you do that?
By just what we are talking about. You and I go to the ballot today, you will not even get 3 votes. I imagine.
Maybe 1.5.
Maybe 1.5.
And the half could be somebody who was not sure.
Do you get it?
Yeah.
But a corrupt person goes into the ballot and they win elections. Who has put them in the parliament? The same Kenyans, soon after the elections, after we have chosen our people, we go around and say, oh, these people. To me, it is a crazy. I mean, it's crazy. And so part of what we are trying to do as EACC is to try and educate Kenyans to realize that when you put corrupt people in office, basically you are selling your birthright. That's what it means. And I think even in this studio, I have said it before, we have not yet made a connection between the money that is stolen by the corrupt and the poor services that we receive. We on the one side, We are complaining of a road that is not done. We are complaining about medicine that is not in our hospitals and dispensaries. We are complaining about bursaries that have not been disbursed. We are complaining, and the list goes on.
And there's people who are stealing the money equivalent to, if not surpassing, those amounts that are needed for those things to be done.
Exactly.
So who's supposed to get hold of those folks?
You yourself have said we do get hold of them, okay? But then you as a citizen, I as a citizen, go around and put them in leadership position.
Bishop.
And then we get surprised when they take more.
Bishop, there's a question then that comes into forth in terms of, because EACC does not work alone. EACC works with other agencies, and
yes,
with it, I mean, you get in, you do the investigations, you give your proposals and your report, and even recommendations for prosecution. That is to the DPP, who then picks up the matter and also does investigations and gives recommendations on what to happen next. Enter the police, who then again, EACC does not have the mandate and authority to go arrest. So you have to work with the police to undertake your arrest and be able to bring people to court. Now enters the judiciary mechanism, which then goes through the processes of listening to the evidence that you have and even convicting the individuals that are. But here's a situation where you find an individual has been convicted, has actually even served time in jail. But then again, when it comes to the election period, EACC gives a report, says so-and-so is not fit to run for office. But when you go to the other body that then clears this individual, despite the EACC report, is given the ticket to go run, which asks the question, the government agencies that should work together in making sure that the corrupt spend time in jail seem to be fighting each other. Why are we not seeing synergy in ensuring that corrupt cases and corrupt individuals actually stay where they belong, which is the court, and away from the public discourse and public coffers?
The law on the punishment, the legal framework, let me say, on the punishment of a person who is alleged to be corrupt has a very high threshold. For you to get to the place where you finally get yourself in the coolers, it is really some work done. Take, for example, the election process. The law in the Constitution provides that until you exhaust all the legal process, you are cleared to run. So even though we will present the names of these people to IBC actually cannot stop a person unless they have gone all the way to Supreme Court. Now, we are the ones who put that law in place. We Kenyans voted for the Constitution. That law is in the Constitution. So if, for example, we get a person, successfully investigate, and we are convinced that this person is engaged in corruption, we present that person to DPP. The DPP is convinced that this is true, takes them to court. All corruption cases start at magistrate's level. Okay? So the magistrate is equally convinced that this person indeed was engaged in what is said to have happened, and they are convicted. That person then appeals to the High Court. The High Court is convinced. That person appeals to the Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal is convinced. That person appeals to the Supreme Court. That period can take up to 10 years. In that time, that person will have served their term if they are members of parliament and completed and ready to run for another, So that is, unfortunately, and for me as chair of EACC, that's an issue that I've raised several times. Our legal framework is not designed to punish corruption. It is not.
It's interesting because the report, the next that came out, and we said, okay, I didn't see that anybody was really shocked that, oh my goodness, this is happening in Kenya. It just seemed like it was a reaffirmation of what folks know to be the case, but also born with a hope, that some of these things will start to change, that you see a reduction or that you see then an absence of such things, which is linked directly to what you said just before we went to the break, that there is no framework, or rather there's nothing to actually deal with this, because, and I have to ask the question, why? Is it because it was never expected that it would happen, or because it is so entrenched in the way of doing things that it was never imagined that you needed to have a framework that would deal with this thing completely? That in other jurisdictions, it is so frowned upon that we saw a case as simple as when a particular female leader was leaving an office and there was a problem with a tea kettle that she used to use in the office. It was missing at the end of her tenure. She was going to leave in about 61 days, but she left at that point. Sounds like it's strong with hyperbole, but she said, you know what, there cannot be anything that me attached to anything that would seem as a loss. And so she left. So are we saying that there's no framework that makes this thing so unpalatable? There is no framework that deals with this thing, and so there needs to be a reimagining for redesign of this framework?
Very true. So when we talk about the legal framework, because I was responding to what Dennis had asked, when it comes to our legal framework, we have put the economic crimes, at a very, very high threshold. The burden of proof is not on the side of the person who is alleged to have been involved, but it is the prosecution to actually prove beyond reasonable doubt. And corruption is not as easy to prove beyond reasonable doubt. Any little thing, and that case is dismissed. So, as the reimagining is a great idea, that we have to come back and say, if what this report that we launched the other day, if that's what is the reality on the ground, what should we do in order for us to deal with this matter? It is not going to be one person caught here and another one caught there by EACC. It has to be a whole nation approach where we say we are tired of this thing. Look at how we dealt with COVID-19.
Yes.
If we had not taken the measures that we had taken, like the CS then said, Mutahi Kagwe, this thing would have treated us abnormally. But because it was a whole nation approach, and where the members, the citizens of this country cooperated in whatever the government instructed, we are still around. We lost a few people, but compared to what had happened in other jurisdictions, we would say God was really gracious to us. But we actually followed instructions. When the government said you're not traveling up country, we didn't travel. I know a few people, like we said about Ananias and Sapphira, still sneaked behind because they wanted to, for whatever reason, that's the joy of going against the law. But for the majority of Kenyans, we agreed. And we followed the instructions that were given, and we dealt with that matter of COVID-19 and came through it the way we did. Think about 2003, when the NAC government came in, and Michuki put in the famous Michuki rules to try and tame the transport sector, the public transport sector. And everybody was like, this can't happen. That's never been done, because several attempts had been made, but they did not work. But when the public agreed with the minister to follow what the minister said, finally these people were tamed. And we got to a place where you could travel comfortably within a matatu, put on your seatbelt, no standing passengers, no graffiti on the vehicles, and so on and so forth. So it is going to require all of us as the public, and we are working on a possible campaign that we will be sharing with the public soon. How can we all together work to drive these corrupt guys out of town?
And how can you?
Because
a few days after that report came out, the Auditor General, she's been a busy woman, and
very busy.
Yeah. So she's she's seen a 9.4 billion shilling problem.
Yes,
that's a corruption issue.
It is,
and it's barely. The jury's still out on the reports from EACC. It's still not dried yet. And then this, which the workings were coming through, we could see them every now and then it would pop up. But this is a 9.4 billion shilling issue. To cover some of the things that you mentioned, Bishop, that Kenya needs money for. This money's gone somewhere else that could have actually taken care of those things. And that's what corruption does, isn't it? Is that it takes money away from the viable things that should be happening in the country, and it puts it in the pockets of a few individuals. This doesn't need to disappear. And I know that there's a lot of responsibility that's placed on the shoulders of the EACC, but then it's kind of like terrorism. You snuff one cell out, and before you are even able to finish, another one has popped up here, and another one has popped up here. How are you going to keep in line with all of this?
That's why I said we need a whole citizen approach. Because these things pop up in all places. If you look at the way we are structured as EACC, we have about 700 staff. That is everybody. We cannot be able to follow all these people and everywhere. There are some that can be dealt with right at the local level. You can say, no, I'm not going to pay. You simply refuse. Citizens can come out and say, well, those are things you can deal with at the local level and ensure that your member of parliament who has received bursary money and is supposed to be disbursed in the right way, that money is actually disbursed in the right way. And the children that's supposed to benefit rather than particular individuals who are privileged, who don't perhaps even need that money. So those are things that citizens can do at the local level, without having to wait for EACC to come in. So if we take that approach to dealing with corruption at every level, we can actually drive these people out. So that EACC, for example, in UK, in Britain, the equivalent of EACC only deals with high-level corruption. It doesn't deal with the small one. For us, like I said, we deal with 200 shillings and we deal with 10 billion. So we are totally so spread out that it is not workable. So in the UK, they deal with high-level crimes, and all the others are dealt with by other agencies. So that gives focus. We can now be able to look at e-Citizen. By the way, e-Citizen is something that we had raised before. This is not the first time. As EACC, we did our investigations. We saw some loopholes there, and we raised it for them to be handled. We are again looking at the same thing to just try to see whether these allegations are true, because as of now, we can only say they are allegations until we do our investigations and actually find out facts and figures that we can work with. And that is something that we are seized of and we are pursuing.
So, Bishop, let's talk in terms of political goodwill in dealing with corruption in the country. So here we've established that when it comes to prosecuting the corrupt, now the threshold pretty much is moved to the investigating authorities to prove beyond reasonable doubt. How about then through different agencies, the EACC, to come up with say a proposal or a bill, talk about EBC with a bill that would then transfer that threshold to the suspect to convince the court that they are free. That's one point. And then again, let's look at the political goodwill in dealing with corruption in the country, because one would say, as much as the state signed the conflict of interest bill, but it is still the man at the top that is seen to be cajoling with individuals who are deemed to be corrupt, which then brings the question in terms of a political goodwill to deal with corruption in the country, and if at all that does exist?
Well, political goodwill is a very intangible asset, as it were. You cannot tell what this political goodwill is. So politicians will always be politicians, and how politics play out, it doesn't follow any certain rules. So you can't say this political game has gone off the rules. No, it plays very differently. But institutions like EACC, like judiciary, like ODPP, and so on, have a very clear legal framework within which to operate. And so we cannot follow the political things. We follow the law. We follow what the law has, what law has been put in place, and if it leads us into a political room, we will follow it right there. So that is what we do. So you'll find that, for example, right now, for example, we have more than 9 governors that we have been pursuing on matters to do with corruption. And they are from across the political divide. They are from the Kenya Kwanza. They are from other political parties. So when we follow this individual, it is not the party that stole. It is the individual that stole. And so we'll go after them. Now, how they play their politics on the other side, that is up to them. But for us, we'll try and follow the law and try to bring these people to book. And you have seen some of them making all kinds of noises, and always as politicians they will say this is political witch hunt, it is my enemies. That is something that we are used to and doesn't bother us. So ours is to do our work according to the law that is laid down, and whether you are on this political side or that political side, we will pursue you according to the law. Now, when it comes to the matters of threshold that you talked about, you see, for example, when we are in the civil matters, like say asset recovery, unexplained wealth, those are not criminal, they are civil. Now, in civil, the law is very different. So if we, for example, find that Dennis here has more than he should have, we will come and check, and then we'll give you opportunity to explain, how did you build this block of apartments from the kind of salary that you are paid? Then you can explain to us. If you can satisfactorily explain how that came about, no problem. But if you cannot explain, then we assume that you must have stolen this money from the public. So we'll then take you to court. This we don't even have to go through the office of the prosecutor. Yeah. So we go straight as EACC. And this, in the area of asset recovery, it has been our greatest success because the law is on our side, the process is on our side.
Sure.
And it just shows that if we were able to tweak the law, even on the criminal side, there would be greater success than we are experiencing today.
When you deal with a systemic issue, because again, in the report, the police came out as an institution with the highest levels of corruption, followed by others thereafter. But what we're dealing with now is systems that are flawed. Systems are flawed. They are, I'm looking for the right adjective, but they are flawed.
Or made to be flawed.
It's by design.
Sometimes.
We've talked about budgeted corruption. We talk about systems that have been deliberately set up in the manner in which they are to foster corruption. So, are you fighting, it's like a dog chasing its tail, because you're working within a flawed systemic issue here? So should the push be for proper systems either to be reimagined or reestablished? Because we can continue to try and fight to remove people who, or have people who have participated pay, or we can insist on fixing the system from the source. Which do you think?
Very good. Part of our mandate is to advise government agencies on how to combat corruption, economic crimes, unethical behaviors, and so on. So in fulfilling that mandate, one of the things we do is what we call systems review. So we go into an institution, a government department, a ministry, a county government, and we look at the whole system and try to identify areas of weakness that the corrupt might exploit. And we then give them advice on what should be done in order to seal those loopholes. And this is something that we do across the board. So talking about police, we are actually currently in that process of looking at their systems and giving advice on what could be done to help seal some of the loopholes that have been there. And we were with the IG Kanja not too long ago when we launched that process. And it was welcomed as something that they would like to follow. We have done that for the judiciary. We have done that for county governments. We have done that for several government agencies, parastatals, and so on. So when we come out with that kind of a report, we then present it to them and say, in our evaluation, these are areas of weakness that we have noticed that need action, and we advise on what kind of actions that need to be taken so that you seal these loopholes that the corrupt exploit in your organization. And we have seen those people who have taken that advice seriously. And remember, as of now, the law only mandates us to give advice. It is we can't enforce it, which is something that we are trying to see if we can get the law to be changed so that it is enforceable. But as of now, we give advice. And what we have seen, those entities that have taken that advice seriously, we have seen significant improvement in their operations. So these systemic problems can actually be mitigated if the leadership within those entities are willing to take the advice of the Commission and or are willing. By the way, some people have refused. Some entities have simply refused. When we come to them and say we would like to do this systems review, they just say no. We're
not interested right now.
We are not interested for now, and we can't force them. That's why we are saying if the law could be changed so that that is enforceable, perhaps it could help. But we do that in order to prevent corruption.
Bishop David Oginde is the chair of the EACC, has been with us this hour. That's why it's called the fight against corruption, because it still continues.
It continues.
Thank you so much for being here this morning and for sharing those insights with us.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.